We are here with head men's basketball coach Blake Mellinger, a day late ahead of a Carson-Newman matchup for you guys on the road. And let's start right there with the schedule change. We're doing this interview a day late because of the snow. The game got moved back from what was supposed to be today, Wednesday, at about 7:30 for you guys. They move it back a day, make travel a little bit easier. The snow was kind of expected. I don't think any of us expected it might change the schedule, but it does give you guys an extra day of prep. How have you guys kind of used this extra day? And, does that extra day make that much of a difference when getting ready for a game like this?
Yeah, honestly, I think it was a big help for us. We had a couple guys that were banged up after that Anderson game on Saturday, so it more than anything, it gave us an extra day to kind of give them to rest and recover. We practiced on Monday. We actually gave them the day off yesterday, and then we're getting ready to practice here again in about an hour. So, no, I think it was really good. I mean, it was that one day it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you got guys that are kind of banged up, it can make a huge difference.
And I think when you're in the thick of this schedule where it's Wednesday, Saturday, the rest of the year, that one little day can, kind of fix a routine and kind of get guys right. You mentioned that Anderson game. Let's go back to that. A 93-87 win for you guys. One of the better offensive performances you guys have had this season. You guys were led in scoring by Svekovic, 24 points, a career high for him. We've talked about him ad nauseum this season and his progression in these last six starts and how much better he's been from now till, how he was at the start of the year. I just want to ask you, kind of different from that. What was your reaction? I mean, the guy hit three threes in 74 seconds, had a hand in his face in a couple of them. I mean, he just exploded in that first half, and kind of kept the scoring going a little bit into the second half. What was your reaction kind of watching him go out there and catch fire like that?
Yeah, like I think at the time we had him in at the five, so we were trying to really expose that matchup. That they had one of their bigs guarding him, and they were playing a drop coverage on ball screens. So we were just trying to put him in pick and pop situations where he could space the floor on the perimeter, and we knew their bigs would have a hard time getting out to him. And then if they did, we knew he had the versatility and the ability to put the ball on the floor and go by him. So I think that was a big part of it. And then he's playing so confidently right now. We've talked about it, over and over again. Um, and I think that something that will continue on as we move forward here.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that little 74-second spurt and what you talked about, him being the five in that situation, is a good example of the advantage of how much better this offense and this team can be when he's playing well. Because there was some worry going into that game. Anderson's a big team. They've got some really good forwards. You guys were without Ron Uka. Joel Pettiford had two fouls in that first half. So you had to go small and put Svekovic in. And it really worked out from an X's and O's standpoint. I think that was a good example of how good this offense can be, even when you go small, because you've got a big forward like him who can stretch the floor and handle the ball.
Yeah, it really was. In a lot of ways, we were trying to force the matchup. I think I mentioned that after the game on Saturday. Like, we were trying to force them to have to go small because we knew if they didn't and if they kept two bigs on the floor, we could put Melo and Love at the 4 and the 5, and they were really going to have a hard time guarding those two guys. And I think that's kind of what happened during that stretch there in the first half. Like, they had two bigs on the floor, and Love got loose, there in that 75-second stretch that you mentioned. And then not too long after that, Melo got loose and got a couple threes down also. And then from that point on, they pretty much started matching us with a lineup, which is, what we wanted.
Had to feel pretty good to see Carmelo Pacheco, like you mentioned, catch fire like that. 17 points for him. That's the most he's had since he's been back from injury. And that comes after struggling just one shot, 0 points against Lincoln Memorial in the game before. Now you've kind of got your freshman back, it feels like, and another piece of that offense.
Yeah, it is. He's such a huge piece because he can really play almost four different positions for us. So we can move him around a lot, put him in a lot of different situations. Early in the season, he was playing the 2. We've moved him to the 4 some just to create mismatches offensively because he's a bigger, more physical guy, so he can match up defensively and still create advantages for us on the offensive side.
Another guy in double figures, as we mentioned, you guys had 5 for the third time this season. Another guy you had in double figures was Kalen Lightford. He got 8 of his 13 points at the free throw line. He went 8 for 9. The one miss in the game is his second miss this season and the first miss since the second game of the season against Lees McRae. He had 4 clutch free throws late, too, down in the final minutes, where Anderson, who was down in the second half that whole game, found a way to come back and make it a 2-point game. And all of a sudden, you guys needed some points, and Kalen Lightford delivered again. That's the second or third time this season we've seen him make those clutch free throws. He's showing that leadership at the point guard spot, despite only being a sophomore.
Yeah, yes. I mean, anytime late in the game, like you want to get the ball into his hands because if teams put him on the free throw line, that you're going to be in really good shape. And I think that's what happened, down the stretch on Saturday. Uh, Not that we necessarily did anything to put the ball in his hands. Like he came up with a big rebound there underneath their basket when I think we were up 2, and then I forget right after that. But getting the ball in his hands in a late game situation is always going to be really good for us.
And so you get that big win moving into this Carson-Newman game. You get off a 2-game losing streak with the win over Anderson. This Carson-Newman team, we saw early in the season, not you guys didn't get to play them, but they played in the SAC Conference Carolinas Challenge here at Wise. They played Lees McRae and King, almost lost to King in a close one. They beat Lees McRae. They've had a really good year since then. They're 12-3 on the year. Nick Brannigan exploded for 64 points last weekend. They're one of the best offenses in the country. A very similar offensive style to you guys, highly efficient, a lot of 3-point shooting. How do you think that bodes for you guys going into Holt Fieldhouse tomorrow and taking them on?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're really good. I think Coach Benson's really done a really nice job of retooling his offense in a way. So he's doing some of the same things he's done in the past, but he's also and being really, really efficient in that. But he's also, he's playing some smaller lineups, putting 4 guards on the floor at a time at different points in the game, and that's making them really, really hard to guard. So, and then they're running some different stuff. They're spacing the floor really well. They've got guys that can beat you off the bounce. They can really shoot it from the perimeter. So it'll be a tough guard, a really tough scout for us. So that's something we'll have to be ready for. That's not an easy place to play. Holt Fieldhouse is, I think one of the tougher places to play in our conference. So we'll definitely have to be ready.
Depending on which way you look at it, they're arguably the best rebounding team in the country. They lead the nation in rebounding margin, averaging 12 more rebounds per game than their opponent. Rebounding has been a key conversation for you guys all season long. You and I have spent a little bit of time talking about it. Carson-Newman's not exactly a very large team, but they just rebound very well and they crash the glass a ton. What do you guys have to do to keep them off the glass and find ways to keep that rebounding margin close and thus the possession game close?
Yeah, I think you have to match their physicality. They're not huge from a size standpoint, but they've got some really physical guys. Even their guards, they play really physical on both ends of the floor, but especially from a rebounding standpoint. And it's something you don't see a lot. They play a lot of zone, and normally, like playing a zone defense, you're more susceptible to give up offensive rebounds, and they really don't. Like they rebound the ball really well out of a zone, and then they put a lot of pressure on the offensive glass on the other end also. So definitely a point of emphasis for us, but I think the biggest key is just the matching their physicality.
Well, Coach, we're very excited about that game. We will see you down there. Have a safe trip and stay warm.
All right. Thanks, man. Take care.